gonna help make our meringue super strong as well because it's egg whites without the moisture. So all we're doing is adding protein, which will make the structure of our meringue super tight and help us. And then we're going to use our granulated sugar, which is 50 grams of granulated sugar. And so I made meringue pops for the first time. First, let me finish the recipe. 72 grams of both. You're the first YouTube. Oh, Halima. I'm here for you, lady. That's what we're doing here, right? We get to, I love the conversation we get to have when we're live. 72 grams of both confectioner sugar and almond flour. There we go. They're both sifted already. I sifted them last night and they're ready to go. So the whole reason I wanted to do this specific live is because I made macaron pops, or not macaron pops, I made meringue pops over the weekend, or last week, whenever that was. And the recipe said to go low and slow, obviously, I mean, everyone says that, but like in adding your sugar, which I've seen a lot, I mean, people do that a lot for French meringue, is they put in 1 tablespoon of sugar at a time, and you know, we don't have time for that when we're making big batches of macarons, but I thought, why not try it and see if it yields a full shell for us. Meringue pops have a ton more sugar in their meringue, so that's something to think about too. So this might not work. The ratio here, the sugar is not as much, and so that extra sugar creates a really strong meringue when you're doing meringue pops. So it's a little bit different, but I just wanted to apply that technique to here and see what we can come up with. Let me get this up. Make sure I'm muted. Okay. Is almond flour and almond powder the same? Yes. Did I say almond powder? Yes. Almond flour and almond powder are the same. The thing where you can run into differences is if you get almond meal. Almond meal is usually raw, ground up almond flour. And you want the almond flour, which is usually toasted and blanched almonds ground up to a flour. So there are some slight differences between almond meal and almond flour, but if I said almond powder, I just meant almond flour earlier. So Beth asked what the purpose of adding the sugar in small amounts is this time. It's just to see if it makes a sturdier meringue. I'm going to put a tablespoon in at a time, wait for it to dissolve a little bit, and then keep adding. Honestly, I just want to see if it makes something stronger. We already have a really strong meringue when we add our egg white powder, so it's just to see if there's any difference, really. Hi, Courtney. It says, do you have, someone asked, hi from Israel, it says, do you have to food process almond powder again if you turn actual almond flour into flour? Okay, so Halima asked about when you're processing almond flour. It really depends on how chunky your almond flour is. I don't ever food process mine. I don't make my own either, but I just sift them together and then you whisk together to make it homogeneous. But you don't need to food process it after you've made your almond flour. A good recommendation is to include your confectioner's sugar if you choose to process it more, because that will help the oils not leach out from your almond flour and get you a oily top, like splotchy meringue. I mean, macaron. Hi, Lena. No, I would not use a really fine sifter. It will leach the oils out as well because you're pushing your almond flour through those little holes, and it's gonna make your life a lot more difficult. I have a sieve that has fairly large holes, like that big, if you can even notice that. I've tried to show my strainer on here, but I feel like it's really difficult over this medium to see exactly how thick the holes are in my strainer. But I am going to get started on the meringue, and then we can answer these questions, these awesome questions, when we're waiting for our macs to dry. Because it's a humid day, I feel like it will take a while for that, so I can answer more questions then. But my kids are doing virtual learning right now in the other room, so I want to make sure I get started. Okay. Yes. It's so important. Like, don't drive yourself crazy with trying to sift that through a tiny, tiny sieve. You'll have so much byproduct as well. You'll have to like dump a ton. So I'm gonna start with 1 tablespoon of sugar and just put it into my egg whites. I want to make sure all my egg white powder goes in early, but I don't want it to clump. So I'm just gonna mix it with that first addition of of granulated sugar, and put this in. I'm gonna whip until it's just bubbly, and then I'm gonna add the first addition, and then go tablespoon by tablespoon. You guys can mute me if you want, because this is gonna be annoying to hear the mixer for that long. So I'm just getting it to be nice and bubbly, and I'll show you guys. I'll take this off and show you, and then I'll add my first addition of sugar. Just tablespoon by tablespoon of that 50 grams of sugar. This is such a small batch. I usually do a hand mixer, but I didn't want to hold the hand mixer for this long. So if you can see, it's super super liquidy still, only like a slight foam over the top, and I'm gonna add my first addition. I don't recommend stopping your mixer at this point. I just wanted to show you guys. So in goes my first addition of sugar and my egg white powder. I'm gonna stop it and just wipe down the sides. So there's nothing stuck on the sides of my bowl, and keep going. Once you feel like your sugar is dissolved, it'll take about 30 seconds after each addition. We're gonna add in our other tablespoons of sugar, one at a time. So I'm on a speed 2. right here. And I'm gonna sprinkle it in. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to stop my mixer or not. Alright, so if you're pouring it in, I have a really small bowl. I have like a 3-quart bowl right now. I'm using a really small bowl, so the whisk is so close to the top, but usually the bowls are quite larger, but because I'm making a small batch, I have a small bowl today. I'm going to wipe down the sides again. So we're just at a stream, like very liquidy and bubbly still. I'm going to keep whipping. We're at a level 3. Once we get a little bit more fluff, if you want to call it that, and less liquidy at the bottom when I can't see. Let's go. See how you can see the liquid in the middle of my whisk? Once I can no longer see that liquid and it's all white, then I will turn it up to about a 5, so between a 4 and a 6. I'm going to add my third addition. I'm stopping it because I did not like the sugar getting all over. Okay, back at a 3. And you can kind of hear the grit of the granulated sugar, and as soon as that goes away, hi from Mexico City, then I add my other additions. I'm going to add another one. This is going to be my last little addition. We have such a small batch, it didn't take too long. So, if you can see, stay safe, you too. If you can see, there's no more liquid in the middle, right? It's all white. You don't see that yellow in the middle of my whisk. So I turned it up to a 4, like a 4-5. I'll show you guys in a second. I'm going to add this last bit. There we go. So right now it's like 4. All the macarons. Yeah. Joe, I need to start sharing my macarons, but I feel still a little unsafe to do so since I've got someone coming from the hospital home and I'm just very worried about getting anyone sick, but we have way too many macarons here. I actually just cleaned out my freezer and just would like take bites of every single one and then I'd have to dump it, which was awful. Hello from San Jose. So here is the strainers. They're about this. These are the ones I use. You can still see almond flour in this one. So they're not super fine. This is a super fine strainer that I do not use. We use it for our coffee grounds, so there's a little bit of coffee grounds in there, but way too fine to try to get your almond flour through. not sure if you guys can see that at all, but okay, so we are not fluffy yet, but super white. And it's almost like that point in a Swiss meringue where you go to the mixer, stand mixer, and you take yourself off of the double boiler. So I'm going to feel it. All the sugar is dissolved in here. It doesn't feel gritty. So I'm gonna turn my mixer up now to medium high and whip till we are at stiff peaks. I'm gonna do green macarons today. We've got this blue spruce. Is this, for me, on my screen, it is writing backwards. Can you guys see what this says? Is it a mirror image? Perfect, okay, good. So I'm gonna use this blue spruce from the Sugar Art. And I like to add my color in before it gets too fluffy, because then it doesn't dissolve very well. For this batch, you do not need a ton. I'm just gonna add a tiny little bit, like the tip of the spoon. I'll show you guys. Again, I don't recommend you guys stopping your, so that's where I'm at. I have not even soft peaks, no soft peaks or anything. I'm just going to add my color in. You guys slowly get it back up to about a 6. Do I? No, I think it's right. Going up to an 8. how small this batch is, so it's taking a long time to get it whisked up. Asked if this was lower than usual, and you're right. I'm going fast because I can't get my mixer to really get this small of a batch. I'm gonna keep going. This is not ready, but we're getting somewhere. But it was more, the slow meringue was more a slow addition of sugar and not so much slow in speed. But I won't go over like an 8. I feel like I have to whisk fairly fast in order to get this to catch the meringue, the egg whisk. Sorry to confuse you. I know, I was like, let's put it up to 10, and that's definitely not slow, huh? No, but I won't go up to 10, just an 8 at the most today. You can definitely bake macarons in a gas oven, yes. So if you look at the meringue now, you start to see the striations. The side of the bowl. I don't have an eggless macaron recipe. So here we go. Once you see the striations in the side of the bowl, you know you're almost done. I'm gonna go a little bit longer. But I always like to go around with my whisk and make sure, because that middle part of your bowl will get whipped the most. So you want to make sure the sides are also stiff, right? And I feel like they're pretty loose at the side. So I'm going to go a little bit longer. Yes, Camilla from Pies and Tacos has awesome vegan macarons. Go check out her YouTube. I'm gonna go a little bit longer on 8, and then we'll be all done. I'll change the title if this is better. So we didn't actually, because I know some people will not go over a 6 speed when they're doing macaron, when they're doing meringue. That just takes way too long for me. I was trying to dissolve the sugar and do a slow meringue in the sense that in the beginning, I whipped it really slow for a long time before I turned it up higher. So this is where we're at now. I like this. I like the way my meringue is holding on the sides. It looks very nice and stiff. And I'm gonna put this into my bowl, put our dries in and macaronage, and then let it rest, and I can answer more questions. Egg white powder does help. See how like stiff it is? It's not moving on my spatula. That's what you want. You want to make sure the sides are at that same point as the middle of your bowl. So it's definitely possible to over mix a meringue, and you don't want to do that because that can also get you hollow shells, and under mixing can as well. So it's finding that balance, and you just have to practice. Let's get you guys in a good spot. Can you see that okay? I'm gonna add in my dries. I could have probably sifted this one more time because it got lumps in it again, but we'll just do it normal. The last live I tried to do it the opposite way and put the meringue into my dries. That was no good for me, but I know some people love that way. But I don't think I'm gonna try it again. So once it's about 90% incorporated the dries, I add my second addition. And then we'll add our third. Right now I'm making sure I'm not deflating. And just sort of making the dries wet with the meringue, if that makes sense. Kind of just pushing those dries into the meringue gently just to get them incorporated, but I'm not pressing out the air on purpose right now. So here we go. I'm gonna add my last batch. If you can see, the meringue is still holding shape. It's not melding into itself yet. You want to make sure you have as much air left in there right now so you have more time to get to the right consistency at the end. So this allows you to really incorporate your dries homogeneously, which is another reason you can have hollow shells, is if you aren't getting those dries all the way incorporated, fully mixed into your meringue, you can have pockets of hollow. So this is really key to getting everything dispersed evenly. So I am not deflating still. Okay, so I've got my dries. I don't see any dries left, right? Even at the bottom of my bowl, no dries. So now I'm going to deflate. You push it and go around, push, go around every once in a while. I get off the bottom of my bowl and go over, cut through the middle and around. So that's my technique in slow motion until you get to the right consistency of your batter. Now I've had a lot of people say they started using egg whites and then their macarons started to get lopsided. Egg white powder, sorry. I've had people say they've started using egg white powder and their macarons are lopsided more now. And that's because when you start to use egg white powder, your meringue will take longer to get to the right, you have longer to macaronage it. So you have to do a little bit more macaronaging, and you can get lopsided macarons if you don't deflate enough. I'll read those questions in a second. So just kind of checking on the bottom of my bowl. See where we're at. almost there. So without egg white powder, this might be a great spot for you if your batter tends to break down a lot more after you put it in the piping bag. However, I've noticed that when you use egg white powder, it doesn't break down as much. So you have to kind of get it at that right consistency and have it ready for the piping bag without expecting it to break down a little bit more in your piping bag. I'm happy with that flow. It's still nice and slow and thick, but you could do a figure 8 with it without it breaking. Once you get to the end of the batter on your spatula, it will break. So that's okay, but it's a nice flow. Okay guys, put it into a piping bag with I think I have a 9mm tip in there. I made a mess with my hands. All right. I'm so glad that the videos are helpful. Is it Sheeta? Detail. Oh, I'm so glad you feel you can trust the recipes. Someone else said that, and it really is one of the best compliments you can give me. So thank you. Hi, Chrissy. Oh my goodness, Chrissy, yes. One of my Mac friends said that she tried this. You just let the egg whites sit with the dries, and she tried it and she got feet. I need to, well, I'll have to go talk to her about it again. But yeah, you should try it. Let me know how it goes. Okay. Let's pipe today. Straight up and down. Pressure, pressure, pressure. Stop pressure when you get to how big you want it. And stop pressure and just kind of flick the tip off. Your macaron batter should not be running out of your piping bag. How's it going, Mom? I'm trying not to use 2 sheet trays, so I might make these larger than usual. I just want to bake 1 tray off. I have to put a good amount of pressure down though to squeeze my batter out. It's not running out of my piping bag by itself. Perfect. We're gonna get 1 sheet tray here, not even full. All right. Just gently tap it out. See how thick my batter was when I was pushing it out, and yet it still lays flat after piping. So that's always a good thing. it can feel like it's way too thick and you feel like you need to macaronage more, but you definitely, that's not always the case. You kind of have to play around, because if you use different almond flour, of course, it'll look a little bit different from my batter, especially like a Bob's Red Mill. It's, I feel like, a little bit grainier, so it gives it a different look, but still tastes great. So it really depends on, you have to get used to the look of your own batter. Macarons will have small feet if a few things: the oven temperature is too low, let me set a timer for resting. I've found that I need to rest at least about 15 to 20 minutes in this humid environment. And then I'll turn my oven on about 5 minutes before that's up. Okay, so let's see if I can get to the text bigger. Thank you, Hannah. Okay, that's a really close up. I don't want to be that close to the camera. I'll just use my computer. Wilton, what do you need to do? Nothing. Okay, go back. Please listen. Okay. Say hi. Hi. Okay. Be careful with the wires. Sorry. Okay, let's see here. So we're resting our macarons. We tapped them out. I'm going to start the oven about 5 to 10 minutes before, and thanks guys. And we'll just wait for now. My humidity level has gotten down to 49. Let me show you guys my dehumidifier. I've got it right here. So it's now at 49% in the kitchen area. So that's nice. As soon as I turn the oven on, my humidity in this little kitchen goes up. So I have to just kind of be aware of where it's at the whole time. If you have too many resting macarons, if you have tons of trays, just keep an eye on the humidity level. If you guys have a dehumidifier, if not, run some fans. Someone had said they run a fan on their macarons because they live in a humid environment. If it's not too forced of a fan, that's a great idea. Because, but if it's a forced fan, it could cause lopsidedness. So you have to be careful. I don't love Italian macarons, but yeah, maybe I can do more. Can you double? Yes, you can double the regular recipe of macarons, the base recipe, which is 100 grams egg white powder. I feel like my 4th tray is sometimes fragile top, so you kind of have to combat that. If you have a double oven, that will be fine. It's just the resting time of these larger batches that's an issue with this specific recipe. Malik asked, how do you get my, how do I get the macarons so vibrant in color? Great question. With the powdered colors that I use today, I feel like it's easy to get a vibrant color. Even if you put this into the meringue and it's aerated for a long time, it still stays vibrant because of the density of the color. Super strong. If you use gel colors, put it in at the end of your meringue or even while you're macaronaging. If you feel comfortable with your macaronage, if you feel like you can get it evenly dispersed in time, that will keep your colors really vibrant. If you add the gel color too early into your meringue, it gets aerated and it will become a lighter color. Also, if your oven is too hot, someone was saying they can't figure out their oven because they get full shells with a high temp, but then they brown, and then so it can be hard to figure out how to keep your color vibrant, how to get a full shell, and how to make sure that you're not browning and burning your shells. How do you know if they're, so NASA asked, in the absence of a dehumidifier, how do I know it has rested enough? So when they're dry to the touch, you will put your finger on the macaron very lightly, and if it comes off, it'll also look a little bit more matte finish on the top of your macaron shells. Sabia asked about Swiss method, and I think it does work in humid environments. I've had issues with my macarons resting too long with the Swiss method. I really like them, but I get huge feet for some reason. I think maybe I need to macaronage more when I'm doing Swiss method than I usually do, because I get huge feet when I do it, and I will get lopsided with my second tray. So I feel like French has just been my go-to, and that's what I will go to. You're amazing. It's my default, and I feel the most comfortable with it. But please, by all means, try out more. That's why I love experimenting on these lives, so we can all kind of see, oh, there's different ways to do it. It's not just this way, and to see what works best for you. Someone asked, if you are making multiple batches with different fillings, how would you recommend storing them until they are ready to be served? Yeah, I would, in my production week, I would always make shells the first two to 3 days. Shells, different colors, whatever you want. And then store those in the freezer unfilled. Make fillings the next 2 days. Or 1 day. I only had 3 hours of work, 3 hours a day I could work, so I was very, each day was a little bit of work, but I would make filling for 2 days and then fill the last day, right, the day or two before the event, and then refrigerate for the day or two, or freeze if it's a little bit early. If it's any more than 2 days, I'll freeze them and then just take them out the night before the event. Did that answer? That was a lot of words. You can use parchment for sure. I don't prefer it. I guess I shouldn't say I don't prefer it. I don't use it as often because I throw it away after every single time. I just feel like the reusable mats are a nice option. Excuse me. Sorry guys. And yes, I prefer silicone mats the way that they hold the circular shape of a macaron. I apologize, I'm not bored. That's just me being tired. Yolanda, hello again. I found when I freeze the shells, some get really oily on top. So when you freeze your shells, you want to make sure you have a really good freezer. You want to make sure that you are able to have an airtight container as well, and that no moisture is getting into your container. You want to keep them at a really good frozen level. If you're opening your fridge up a lot, if you have a home freezer only, then it's probably not the best. They're probably getting defrosted and unfrosted. You can try to really shove your macarons somewhere deep in your freezer, so it doesn't have as much effect from you opening and closing your freezer door. When you put them in the freezer, yes, as soon as you take your Macs out of the freezer, start the shelf life just as you would put them into the fridge. Hopefully that answers that. Halima, you don't need to buy silicone mats. Parchment works great, and if you're happy with it, then there's really no point in spending more money on something else, on these finicky cookies that we spend too much on already. So someone asked, this is a great question, if my second tray of macarons dries out too fast while my other tray is baking, can I leave the batter in the bag and pipe later? It depends on what method you use. If you use Italian, you might be able to do this. I don't recommend it. I rather have my macarons piped out and drying than to have the batter kind of solidify in the bag and then manipulate the batter more. It breaks it down more, with French method at least. Italian is a little bit more sturdy, so you could probably do it for one tray. I know lots of people that keep it in for a long time. So I'm just not comfortable with that, and I've found that it breaks down my batter and causes really fragile tops. A good thing that you can do if your macs are already over drying on just the second tray, you could try doing the multiple trays in at once. Soaring Eagle Sweets, have you ever tried putting your first tray in for half the amount of time? And then when you flip it around halfway through bake, you put your second tray in on top. So then it has enough space in your oven so it won't crack. If you put that second tray on the bottom, it's gonna crack because the airflow is terrible, at least in a non-convection gas oven like mine. Macarons, what are they and how do they taste? They are little meringue based cookies with almond flour and confectioner's sugar, and you sandwich them together and you put some filling in, and mainly the filling is what flavors your entire shells and makes them these beautiful bites of goodness with whatever you choose to fill them with. They're magnificent. Rosette macarons, sure, yeah, let's do rosettes. I wonder how we can make them Halloweenish. Like, I don't know. I'll try to think of a design for that. What other brands do you recommend for flavoring? Hirsch, I have not used other brands or flavoring. I've used like extracts and stuff, and actually these Trader Joe's vanilla bean paste. This is really nice. And it is a lot less expensive than like your Nielsen Massey, which is amazing as well. Nielsen Massey is one of the best for extracts. Here we go. Here's that brand. They have like rose water and orange blossom water extracts. They're really nice. Isla, are you okay, sweetie? Can you get down, sweetie, so you don't, if the light comes down on you, I'll be sad. You get down for me? But I have heard, I haven't tried, but I heard Get Suckered, like get and then suckered. I'm so good at explaining things. Get Suckered, I heard they have really good flavors as well, and I think they're extracts or oil based. I'm not remembering correctly, but I haven't used too many other brands, to be honest. I tried to do my own as much as cottage food businesses would allow me to do. Macarons stay fresh, depends on how long you bake them, what the filling is, but I would say 3 to 4 days in the refrigerator in an airtight container. If you freeze them, they could be good 3 months later if you have a really good seal, but I don't freeze more than a month. When would you add vanilla bean paste? So I actually don't flavor my shells. I wouldn't add it to my batter, but you could add the vanilla bean paste. Let's see. Sugar, water, vanilla extract. You could probably add it at the very end of mixing, just like you would. Some people add a vanilla extract to the meringue at the very end of mixing. You could try vanilla bean paste instead. I don't like to add stuff to my shells. I let the filling do the talking. Is there anything you can do if you undercook? If you undercook them, no. They're really too moist and they break down so easily. I've never tried to like toast them afterwards. You could try toasting them for a little bit. Let me start my oven. What time are we at? What time? 9, okay. You can try toasting them and see what happens, but I really don't think you could do much with underbaked. With overbaked, I have brushed with a simple syrup before on the bottom of the shells to make them less crunchy, or some people do milk. You can brush the bottom of your macaron shells with milk and see if that helps. I had one person so creative, she said if she crumb coats the bottom of her shell, it helps them not get as soggy. So it was just like she would spread a little bit of buttercream on both the sides of the shell before filling and let them dry out before filling it. So if you have too moist of a shell, you could try that. I thought that was really inventive. So if your macaron shells are usually super crunchy with fragile tops, your batter might just be not strong enough, like your meringue might not be strong enough, it might be overbaked. But when I hear a fragile top and crunchy, I think overmixed and overbaked. What can you use instead of black cocoa powder and chocolate macarons? You could use activated charcoal. You can use charcoal, food grade charcoal. One of my friends, Shayla, from Shay's Sweets, she does charcoal. Millie, it's just practice. I know, it's frustrating when you see a completely empty shell, but it's finding that sweet spot of whipping your meringue to a stiff peak. Hello, Alina. Good morning. Am I pronouncing your name right, Alina? That's what I want to say. And so you want to make that. You want to be able to find that stiff peak. Good. Okay. Perfect. Hello. You guys, we're doing a collaboration, Alina and I, on Instagram. If you are a baker and you want to, it's mostly United States based because it's for the election coming up, and we just want to encourage people to vote. And if you have money to donate to organizations that are going to enable us to have a safe vote with all these stuff going on right now, there is just some scary stuff that maybe all the mail-in voting won't work and such. So we're just trying to make sure there's a fair election that happens in November and to encourage voting. Let's see here. Someone asked, so we did oh yes, Hannah said you can also use regular cocoa powder, like a brown cocoa powder for sure. You don't have to use black cocoa powder. It doesn't taste as good either. I just use it for that colorant, make it nice and dark. Let's see. How do you keep macs fresh in the freezer when they're already full? Someone asked, how do you keep macarons fresh in the freezer when they're already filled? And I feel like you kind of stop the maturing process as soon as you freeze them. Make sure you are below 32 degrees in your freezer, but it should stay fresh. You can temper them back to room temperature by putting them into your refrigerator after that, and you should have a beautiful shell still ready to be eaten after being frozen. If not, then your temperature might be too low. Your temperature might be too high in your freezer, and maybe your seal on your container is not airtight, or just that opening and closing of your freezer door might be defrosting more than you think every time you're looking for something else. Okay. Someone asked why their macarons are so cakey, and I really feel like, and so cakey and fragile. I've had that happen with black macarons before, and I don't know why, to tell you the truth. Sometimes, why would they be crispier sometimes with the same recipe and cakey another time? I have not figured that out, but I would suggest that you make sure your measurements are correct when you're making your macarons, and to not rest them too long. Let's see. What did I say before? Same measurements. Crunch shells. So yeah, the more sugar you have in a recipe, the more likely it's gonna be crunchier. So I used to do a Brave Tart Stella Parks recipe, and it had way more confectioner sugar to almond flour ratio. So when you have more confectioner sugar in your recipe, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for, it's gonna be a crisper bite. I feel like Italian method, I'm getting a cakier feel. If you use Italian method, I don't know who else. I'm trying to find that. I don't know. Whoever said that it was really cakey, you could, if it's Italian method, you could switch methods. But I've gotten really cakey macs with French method too, and it's just frustrating. Here we go. Our macaron shells are dry. I like to make sure in the middle where there's less airflow that they are also dry. That's where I'll test to see. They're not sticking to my finger as I touch them. I'm really lightly touching. I don't touch right on the top. I'll touch right on the foot. I guess I could touch on the top too, but I tend to push down too hard. And my oven temp has gotten to temperature, so I'm gonna put these bad boys in. We'll see how they turn out. Okay, so I preheat my oven to 300, and then I decrease my oven temperature to 275 when I put my tray in. Yes, scratch your fingers. And then I feel like that allows my specific oven not to jump in temperature. The internal temperature stays about 290 in my oven. Why do my macarons not say beautiful color? So Diana asked about her color of her shells, and I feel like it really depends. So if you feel like your shells are vibrant before baking, then it's a lot has to do with the oven. But it's also the brand of color you're using and when you're putting it into your mixture. So if you have like a powdered coloring, it will be nice and vibrant for you. It doesn't get too aerated, and I feel like it's a great option. A little bit goes a long way with these powdered colors. If you're using gel colors, put them in at the end of your mixing of meringue, or else it gets aerated and the color gets a lot less vibrant. Or if you feel comfortable, add your color in while macaronaging, and that will help get even more vibrant because you're not whipping it at all. Let's see here. So someone said their macarons never developed a dry skin. That's a good indication that your batter is somehow bad. It's either your meringue wasn't stiff enough, or you overmixed is usually the two main things for that. Or you're just in such a humid environment, it's not able to dry, and you need some type of dehumidifier or fan. I always check my oven.
Mommy?
Yep.
Where's the scissors?
Scissors? I don't know. I always check my oven a couple minutes into bake. Let's be honest, I babysit my oven while my macarons are in. I'm still not used to this oven after 2 months, 3 months here in this house. So it takes a really long time. Also, don't get discouraged if you feel like all your bakes are, it really takes a long time to learn your environment and your oven, especially if you're not consistently writing down in our math journals all of our trials and what works and what doesn't, and switching one thing at a time. I'm really bad at staying focused and switching one thing at a time. I'll do too many, and then it just really puts you back at square one. So I recommend not doing what I do and trying things all the time, and just changing one thing at a time. My oven is gas. Gas oven. We wish you all the best in your, oh, thank you, Jan. I wish you could DM on Snapchat. Oh, Halima, yeah, I don't have Snapchat, I'm sorry. But I do have email, and on my website, I think I have my email on there on the contact information. Let's see, Sue. Yes, definitely, Sue. You can, oh, you can't just, you were telling someone. Okay, perfect. That's a really good, if you always have trouble with chocolate macarons for some reason, yeah, just color it brown, and don't worry about the flavor, and just add your chocolate filling. Someone asked if they can microwave to bake up their macarons, and I've had this question a lot actually, and I feel like maybe you have cooler microwaves than I do, but I would not do it. Are you talking about like a super fancy convection microwave, like toaster oven kind of thing? I'm really behind in these questions. Let me see. Give tips on colors, pastels. So yeah, pastels, you're gonna have to make sure you have your bake down before you add, trying to get lighter colors in. So as soon as you figure out how to get your shells baked all the way without browning, pastels will be an easy feat. 15. You just have to make sure you have a good brand, is what I was trying to say earlier. Americolor gel, Chef Master. I feel like those don't fade as much. The Sugar Art for powdered colors and Chef Rubber for powdered colors are good. Okay. For all the different methods, no, I don't use the same ingredients. Italian method is a completely different ratio. For Swiss, I have used the same, but I've also seen people do, like, for Swiss method, all of the ingredients are the same, so it's 100 grams egg whites, 100 grams sugar, 100 grams confection sugar, 100 grams almond flour. Super easy to remember, but they are not all the same ratios. My oven temperature is at 300, and I put down to 275 to keep it around 290. Yeah, like, Alina, we have a sunrise Mac collab today, and it did not turn out pretty. My take on it just didn't really manifest well like I thought it would. Okay. Okay, is there such thing as over deflating the batter? Yes, there definitely is. Spatula batter goes back into the bowl. Spatula batter goes back into the bowl of batter within 15 seconds. Okay. So if your batter is melding back into itself in 15 seconds, that doesn't sound overmixed. Specifically, like for my batter, that would be a fine flow speed. But if they're hollow, you could also be dealing with other things. If it doesn't have to be your batter. That could be oven temperature is not high enough, or it could even be that you're resting too long, and then it kind of makes your meringue break down your batter as they sit, and then it will just settle at the bottom of your cookie. Also, another thing that can happen to make hollow macarons is if you're over whipping your meringue or under whipping your meringue. And then the other one I wanted to mention is not baking enough. So if you don't bake it enough, you're not allowing the structure to fully form, and it will sink down as well after taking it out of the oven. For your classes, if that's American money, will convert to Canadian. I'm assuming so, yeah. I've had some people from overseas take the classes, and I should ask them to see. A character macaron class, Nana for law asked if I would consider a character macaron class. I feel like we'll have to see. I feel like it'd be fun, especially for the holiday season coming up, Halloween and Christmas, Thanksgiving. I'll have to work on my designs if I were to offer that, but if there's interest in that, that would be really fun to do a specific themed kind of macaron. I feel like most people that are taking it want to focus more. Maybe this will give like a different level of people the opportunity to take it though. So yeah, I'll think about it. So many words. Let's see. Can you write all the details about the baking because I get confused? I'm trying to think. I think on my Macaron 101, in the description of the video, I talk about baking. I'll double check after this. If you want to check out the Macaron 101, I think it comes up on one of the first videos on my channel. It's the most widely watched. So if you go on that, on the description, it should have some detail. If it's chewy, you could definitely bake longer if your macarons are chewy. The macaron bottoms aren't shiny. So Hannah, you might need to bake just like a minute longer. Any advice on doubling a French method batter? Christine, if you're my usual, I wouldn't do more than, let's see, I think I would do a 1.5 times of 125 grams. Alexa, what's 125 times 1.5?
125 times 1.5 is 187.5.
I wouldn't go higher
Did
than...
that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. I used to not go higher than 187 grams of egg whites for me specifically in my environment because my last trays would get a little bit too fragile. So depending on if you have trouble with fragile tops at the end of your bakes, then you can try that out. And just make the ratios work up. So that would be like a 1.8 times recipe of the base recipe. So I have 9 more minutes. I'll show you guys really quickly because I want to try to I want to not have the oven open too long because I'm trying to see if this meringue method works to get a fuller shell, and I feel like if you leave your oven door open for too long at the end of bake, you can create some hollows as well. I'm going to show you really fast how they're doing and what my oven temperature says. I'm shaking too much. I don't think you guys could see, but my oven temperature is about 295, and I'm happy with that. Even though my oven outside temperature I've set to 275. So you just an oven thermometer is key. I will email you. Sorry if you mentioned this before. How long for resting is too long? Is that what you're asking, Chrissy? Marissa, when's my next class? I'm gonna be doing sign-ups for the next class. I'm only gonna have one in October because I'm trying to develop more classes because people are really interested in croissants and other things. So I'm only gonna have one macaron class this month, and it's gonna be October 17th. And then hopefully I can roll out some other pastry courses in the upcoming months and get us ready for serving our guests and our family for the holiday season. I get shiny bottoms, but not on. Okay, so you get shiny bottoms on the silicone mat, but not. Do you pipe directly onto a cookie tray? Yay! I like the excitement. Oh, I'm so glad you like it, Annette. I am really happy. It makes me so. I just love croissants. I feel like doughs are my first love, and to have people be able to make them at home gives me so much joy. Baking the macarons for the first time, which recipe of yours do you suggest? I like the base French recipe. That's my opinion, and I'm always going to steer people to that. So if you go, you can use this recipe if you want a smaller batch, but I feel like it's easier to do a larger batch. So 100 grams egg whites and go from there. 90 grams sugar, 130 grams of both confectioner sugar and almond flour. I love chocolate macarons. Someone asked if I like chocolate macs. How long resting? Okay, yes. How long is too long for resting? And I can't give you an answer, and I know that's frustrating, but I feel like everyone can rest for different times. My friend Monique, I always say my friend, my Instagram friend, Monique from Macarons by Mo, she can rest for like 2 hours, I feel like, and her macs are still good. I feel like I can't rest mine for longer than 30 minutes, or else mine will get lopsided and have a larger gap. I did ask if you liked chocolate. Yes. Have you tried Pierre Hermé's macarons or his recipe? I haven't. Is his French? Or are you asking if I've tried the macarons in his shop? I'm trying to think if I did when I was over there. I don't think so. I tried more little village shops. I don't think I went to those large places. I don't think I've tried them. Are they good, Seth? Have you tried them? And I'll have to look up his recipe. I'm not sure. I feel like so many recipes go about with very similar ratios that I might have used his without knowing it. So Hannah asked about how many does the 100 gram egg white ratio. It's about 2 dozen macarons. Which are 2 types of sugar powder? There are Naho or Najo. I apologize for not being able to pronounce your name. I use powdered sugar with cornstarch. I think lavender max, you could either do a really nice ganache. If you like white chocolate, you could steep your white chocolate, your cream with lavender and make that. I don't prefer white chocolate, so I usually go the buttercream route and will steep my cream for the buttercream with a little bit of lavender and let that sit. You can do a cold infusion or a hot infusion depending on what you're more comfortable with, and then put it into your buttercream at the end, and it's quite delicious. And I don't like lavender, it makes me sneeze, but I love that recipe. Sorry, 80 minutes rest works for me. Yeah, so Mona Lisa said that she can rest for 80 minutes, and that's like her sweet spot, or him. I don't want to assume. So it really depends, and that's the difficult part about macarons, but I do recommend between 20 to 30 minutes for most people. That's like the average. Okay guys, we're almost done with these shells. Feel like I missed a few people. Can egg whites just sit on the cupboard? So Sue asked if egg whites can just sit out in the cupboard, and once you have separated them, yes, I do recommend covering them up. You can poke a couple holes in them and just have them sit in there. But if you have it in a container, you can just crack the lid up a little bit, or if you have plastic wrap over it, just poke some holes with a toothpick or a knife or whatever, and let the moisture evaporate out over the course of 5 days or however long you want to do it. One day doesn't evaporate that much moisture, let's be honest, but it does make it so your egg whites will be at room temperature and they whip up nicer when they're at room temp. So it doesn't hurt to just take them out overnight, but if you really want that moisture to evaporate, 48 hours to 72 hours is better. Can you keep the fan on while making macarons? It really depends on the force of air coming from your fan. Are you talking about in your oven specifically, or like a ceiling fan? I love Americolor brand coloring gel. I love it. Ceiling fan. Okay, so my ceiling fan creates some lopsided macarons, but that's because I place it in a place where it's blowing fairly strong on my Macs, which wasn't a smart idea. If you keep your fan on to circulate air, just make sure they're covered from the actual breeze. But someone before even said they put a fan directly on them, so it really depends. But I feel like in my environment, it dries out one side of my macarons faster, and it will make those that side not rise as well because it's over dried. So I'll get one side of foot and one side it won't develop well with my silicone mat. Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more minutes. I've done, I think, about 10 minutes and 8 minutes, so 18. So we're gonna go for 20 minutes, and then I'll see. When you pre-measure your ingredients, how long in advance do you do it? I've pre-measured dries and put them in an airtight container for up to a week, as long as it's not too bright and humid. Your dry ingredients will last very long in room temperature in an airtight container. Almond flour will spoil if it's in a bright area, like it has oils in it, right? So you don't want to keep any type of oil out in a really hot and bright environment. It likes cool, dark places. So just make sure where you store it is nice and cool and dark. How do I know that my macarons are done? So in order to know when your macarons are done, you can press down on the foot of your macaron shell. I'll do it in the 2 minutes when my timer goes off. If it doesn't give it all, it usually means that your macarons are done. With this oven, I've been having a little bit more trouble figuring that out. It is solid, and then I still need a couple more minutes. So you kind of have to sacrifice one. You can pull the top off of one and see how moist it is on the inside. Just know that when they're still hot, it's still gonna look moist on the inside. It's not gonna be completely solidified, but when you take them out of the oven, they will solidify and dry out a little bit more as they cool. So just if they're super wet on the inside, if you sacrifice one shell, know that you'll probably need about 2 more minutes. And if it's just a little bit, looks a little moist still, it'll probably dry out and you can take them out of your oven. I store my almond flour in my refrigerator. When I scale them, I store it at room temperature in an airtight container. Since I live in a humid environment, I definitely make sure it's not out to absorb the moistures from the air. In a humidity controlled environment, like in pastry school, they had it all controlled for humidity, and we would just leave out our dries on a speed rack on all, you know, you do lots of production, so each sheet tray would have the dries spread out on it, and just we'd dry it out overnight on a speed rack. And so it really depends on your environment. One sec, let me show you guys. Yes, so Hannah asked, what should you do with your yolks? I am going to be doing a series on what to make with your leftover yolks. So you can do tons of stuff. Let's see, I'll show you guys. See if I don't shake enough. Okay, so you're gonna like press down, and if it doesn't give at all, it doesn't look moist around the feet, then you know that your macarons are done. So I'm gonna take those out. Let me just get a closer look, because when I'm holding that, it's hard for me to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that they're done. I'm gonna do one more minute. Just for safekeeping. Is a custard cream a great filling? It depends on how long you want to keep your macaron. A custard filling is not the best for storage life or shelf life. It will only last about 2 to 3 days at most. You will get soggy shells if it's pure pastry cream. If you're doing more like a French buttercream, that's okay, because you're offsetting the moisture and adding more butter, which will make it last a little bit longer, but your shelf life will still be small because of those yolks in there. So it really depends on how long you want these to last, because shelf life will go down. Thank you, Halima. Thank you so much. Oh, that's a great idea. So someone takes her egg yolks, uses some just carton egg whites, and makes whole eggs, and then uses them for her cakes and cookies. What a great idea. Okay, let me take, what about wrinkled macarons? Wrinkled tops. So, for wrinkled tops, it could be a few things. Your oven temperature could be too low. It's usually a sign that you either have too much moisture, your temperature was too low in your oven, you have the wrong type of food coloring in there, if it's an oil-based food coloring, or your almond flour was too oily to start with. Some people will get these wrinkled tops, especially with chocolate, with cocoa powder in your shells, and that's usually a sign that it's overmixed and the batter was breaking down. You want to make sure to combat that is to have a super stiff meringue. So here, let me show you guys. I sacrifice this top. This is what I'm talking about. Oops, let's see. Take the top off and see how it looks on the inside. So it looks like it's not super moist on the inside, right? You just rip the top off, and I know that it will solidify really nicely once cooled. So that's one way you can do that while it's still in the oven. And just it's very gentle, because these are very fragile and they're still warm. And you're just going to take that top off and check the innards. how to make a caramel custard. You could make a pastry cream and add some caramel to it. I would probably even keep them separate so it's not even more moist, and just do some custard or French buttercream and then caramel in the center. Yes, so I was trying to say some things that you can do with all your yolks. You could do a brioche dough, you could do donuts with your brioche dough, you could do ice cream, curds, you could do chocolate mousse, as Hannah said. What else? Pastry creams. Hi, Karen. Yes, this recipe was not without eggs. Thank you. So let's see here. Let me rip this bad boy off. So we've got our shell. The feet are pretty nice. The actual cookie, you know how you can feel like it seems super heavy? It doesn't seem super heavy. Let's see how it looks on the inside. There's a gap. Definitely, if you can see, nice size gap. I mean, there's enough meat on here, which is fine. I push it up, like, you can't even tell. However, there's a gap. So, it's not like, it's also really still moist inside. I should probably wait till it's cooled. But it doesn't look like going slower with the sugar helps me out at all. Again, they're still super delicious and very pretty. I know a lot of people will be sad about that, but I honestly am not. I think they are fine. Are they perfect? No. But rarely do I get perfect shells. I'm trying to get a pair up for you guys. So, it doesn't seem like it's worth it to go slow with that sugar. I'm going to restate how I said that slow meringue because I still whipped quickly at the end. But yes, exactly. Light and airy, Sue. But they're pretty. I like the color. I kind of wanted a darker color, so I could have added more of that spruce or whatever. What was it called? Let's see. Blue spruce. Let's see. Trying to get it off the mat. Yeah. That's a better, you can see the gap better in this one. So, that's that. I mean, once you fill those puppies, you won't be able to tell, but they are not that Instagram-worthy, like, full shell that people want. But they taste amazing. I'm happy with them, but I won't try tablespoon by tablespoon again. What's the best time for convection oven? It really depends on your convection oven. I like 300 degrees or 290 to 300, but I'm prone to go low and slow, where some people will start really high and then go down low. It really depends on your recipe, and but I'd say 290 to 300 for convection for this recipe. All right, guys, I'm gonna get going. Let's see. I did not add cornstarch to the recipe, no. Is that what someone said? These were in the oven for 20 minutes. I feel like I'm really bad at recapping, so let's recap. These were in the oven for 20 minutes. We went slow with our sugar addition in the very beginning. We put tablespoon in by tablespoon. I added the egg white powder in that first addition just to make sure it got dissolved up and didn't get clumpy. And we just went pretty low for the first 5 minutes, I'd say, on about a 4 to add and incorporate our sugar, and then we turned it up to a 6, and then once it was at about medium peaks, turned it up to an 8. And we were seeing if it would help. I'll show you guys the meringue. If you see these meringues, I gotta get going, but I was like, when I looked into the bit, when I bit into the meringue, I don't like the feeling, but when you bite into a meringue, they're so full. So I was like, maybe we just need to go, slower with our sugar. But obviously, we don't have the fat in the meringues like we do in our macarons. It's that adding that almond flour is going to break down your meringue. It's fat. So it's not exactly the same as a meringue. It didn't work putting in sugar as slow as when I was doing the meringue. So trial and not success. I wouldn't say fail though, because we're learning. Thank you. Someone just said congrats on 60 likes. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay. So I have cornstarch naturally in my confectioner sugar. I didn't add any extra. How do I get to your Amazon? Hannah, I'll add a link in the description of this video for the Amazon. You can also do amazon.com. Here, let me write it. I always forget about the chat function. Amazon.com/ Let's see if that didn't work. Well, it didn't work again, but that's what you want to look for. Yes, Dora, you're always my cheerleader. I love it. I always forget to kind of say, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you don't already. I'm really bad at the spiels. So thank you, Dora. I much love you guys. Thanks, Sue, for being here. I want to make dark brown shells. I like to just add, a little bit of black could be a way to go, and also brown, because black will just make it gray, so you have to be careful not to make it too gray. Your email in the chat? Sure, I'll do that, Halima. Okay, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will put a link to the Amazon storefront in my description as well as my email. You can half the French method. I would recommend 55 grams like we did today as the lowest amount of sugar that you whip. I mean egg whites that you whip up. 55 grams egg whites, lowest. All right. Dora, thanks so much for being here. I've missed you. I feel like the 2 weeks is too long. Okay. Bye, you guys. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Well, thank you. And then I always pronounce it Elaf. Okay. Thank you, guys.